Ant-Man Moto here. About to get out on Thanksgiving weekend. It is Sunday. My youngest daughter has been in town this weekend, which has been an incredible surprise for us. So she's in college in Houston, and she's going through a process that's very grueling. And so, you know, it was just great to have her home. And I'm here on the MT-09. It is about 55 degrees today. Not frigid, but not hot by any imagination. Oh, but this is great, man. The air is crisp and clean. And anyway, I wanted to come on here and just give a little update on this bike here, the MT-09 SP. I have gotten to know this bike fairly well at this point, and I really recommend it for a second bike. If you have a bike you love, like me, I have the Aprilia 210, and it's just my dream bike, my passion bike, that 210 is. But if you need a second bike that can hang and can deliver a giggle fest for you, then MT-09 is a great second bike for that. It really is. I'm gonna go do a walk around here in a second and just kind of talk about a couple of things, but one thing I did, and I'll mention it now, is I changed the bars, and I put some bigger, wider bars on here. They're taller than the stock bars, and they're wider by about an inch and a half. So they really give you a much more supermoto feel of this bike. The bars are up higher. You feel like you're in a bit more of a motocross position. And these bars are made by Odi. I can't tell you which ones they are exactly, but I will show them to you here momentarily. Hello, boys. Oh, jeez. What is this, a checkpoint? I have no idea. I'm gonna try to find me a spot. I think I could find a spot in this here. I'm gonna stop right here where we got some good light, and we should be able to get a quick session in without being bothered. So, you know the bike, 2023 MT-09 SP. There she is in all her glory. And I can tell you this bike has been pretty enjoyable. I rode it at the Dragon maybe a month ago, 3 weeks ago, and I've gotten much more accustomed to how it handles and some of the pluses and minuses about this bike. So the MT-09 SP 2023, a very enjoyable motorcycle. The couple of things I've done to it is I have, I think I discussed this before, but just to recap, I've got that LV race exhaust on the bike. It comes with the headers and the exhaust itself. But what I will show you is I actually bottomed out the suspension. You see that right there? A little nick right there. And there's one there. Right there. I actually bottomed the suspension out at the Dragon. I've got a buddy, Big E, who is a Dragon local and a suspension expert, and he kind of gave me some tips on how to correct that, because he says my spring is too soft. I did have my suspension set the sag, so I know the suspension was set, but the compression that goes on that spring is just, it lets the bike get too low to the ground. And some of those real tight hairpin turns at the Dragon, it's like you're bouncing out of it's like you're ricocheting out of the turn almost. And in one turn, I just remember I kind of got into it and I was just feeling it and I was just letting it rip, and I just heard this loud sound. You know, I knew it wasn't a peg because I got the rear sets on. I didn't know what it was. But then come to find out, I scraped the exhaust. So Big E said, I needed a thicker spring, and he, based on my weight, he showed me the spring to order. I don't know shit about suspension, so I just followed his advice, and so I've got a new spring for this, and I'm gonna get up there to where he lives, about 30 minutes away from the Dragon, and he said I should not have that problem again. So I'm looking forward to doing that. That is on the agenda, and really that's the only thing I have left to do on this bike. It's got the race exhaust, it's got the V cycle nut flash, which works flawlessly. I did have it flashed for the Stage 2, and then I ended up not liking the Stage 2 because the airbox that comes with the Stage 2 kit, it just sounds so loud and horrible when you're riding, in my opinion, that the sound of the intake overwhelms everything else about the bike. So I like to be able to hear the exhaust, and I don't like an overwhelming sound of intake. So I had to get rid of the Stage 2, and when I did that, I went back to the stock airbox. So where I'm at now is I have the stock airbox with the snorkels in, and the little air stacks down at the bottom are cut like they are supposed to be in the airbox mod. So it's kind of like a half modded airbox. And then I'm just running the basic tune for a stock airbox with this, and it runs perfectly. It's like a perfect setup for this bike. There's no flat spots. It's extremely enjoyable from the very opening of the throttle all the way up to the limiter, and it's very easy to ride at low speeds. It's very smooth, it's very enjoyable, it sounds good. The only thing I will say is sometimes these MT-09s have a problem starting, and there's a trick. Let's see if we'll do it now. Let's see if it will do it now. I'm going to put it in neutral and see if it starts. Listen. It did it. It started. Okay. But sometimes, especially after the bike is hot, when you go to start it, especially if it's in gear, let me see if it does it in gear. Okay, sometimes when it's in gear and you push the clutch, pull the clutch, it won't start, and you have to put it in neutral. Let me see. Okay, it's in first gear, clutch is pulled in. Let's see. What's happening? Oh, okay, kickstand. Put the kickstand up, it's in first gear. Clutch is pulled in. Let's see. See that? Key back on. First gear, clutch in. Okay, so it's doing pretty good right now, but when this bad boy is hot, it sometimes will not start like very easily. You have to put it in neutral, and you have to start it and don't touch the gas. Just start it and just push this button and don't twist the gas at all, and it will start. It's a wonky thing that used to alarm me, but now I'm used to it, so it doesn't worry me at all anymore. But if your MT-09 does that, I have talked to guys that have owned the MT-09 and also have owned the XSR 900, and they have experienced that same thing, especially after you put on exhaust and you flash it. It kind of is a little wonky with starting. And you can research that on YouTube, you know, look up CP3 hard start or something like that on YouTube, and you'll see the videos. But for me, it hasn't really been a problem. At first, it was a little alarming, and then once I figured out, okay, it's just put it in neutral and don't touch the gas, and it starts. It's like it barely catches, but it starts. Then it's really not a problem. Anyway, I wanted to just kind of let you know about that little glitch in the matrix, but it's nothing major. I've heard if you take off the emissions and all that stuff, that cleans it up. The evap canister, I haven't done any of that. It's just basically flash and exhaust. So the brakes have been great. You know, the front brakes you have to get a little used to because they're a little softer than my Tuono, than what I'm used to, but they work plenty fine. You know, it does have the rubber lines instead of braided lines, which kind of sucks on a bike that's like a performance bike with Olin suspension, but it's got rubber brake lines on it. So little disappointed in Yamaha with that, but I think the new ones come with Brembo calipers, and I don't know if they come with braided lines or not, but the brakes have definitely been improved on the 2024. Let's see, this came with the Evotech radiator guard. I still have my stock turn signals, and these turn signals are so freaking fragile. Like, my grandson came and grabbed this and just pulled it like he does everything. He just grabs it with his little grabby hands, and it just popped right out. And it takes you a minute to get it to go back in, because there's like a little metal plate back here that holds the rubber in place, and so you got to fool with it a little bit. And you know, if you care about the turn signals not being fragile, there are some definite upgrades and mods that you can do for this bike that will improve your turn signal situation. Me, I'm not really worried about it. I just, you know, if they come out, I just pop them back in. My tail tidy back here is the original stock piece that has just been cut and trimmed and mounted straight to the bike. And I think I've talked about this before, and I put like a dirt bike fender thing here to act as a door to cover up all the keyhole, because the keyhole for the seat is under there, and it's worked great. You know, I've got to clean it up some. You can see where I cut it here. It's a little janky looking right there, but it's worked great. But you will see here that from the bottoming of the suspension, when I had the plate down like this, it would rub against the tire. So that's why the plate is way up like this, and I've got it on these bottom holes, and the plate's way up. But it also works great like that because the tail light illuminates the license plate, so it's like legal. You know, you could still read the license plate, so it looks more legal. But the license plate little light that comes here, it normally goes there, but I took that out. So far this has worked great for me. I did order a tail tidy for this, but I don't know, I like this little homemade setup, and I wish I would have waited before ordering it, because I'm completely content with it like this. Now, as for the bars, the MT-09 handlebars are kind of flat, and they're kind of narrow feeling. And while they're fine for most people, for me, I was running them with no problem for all of the while I've had this bike, which has been like 6 months maybe, until I talked to one of my buddies, John, and he would put the RC Ricky Carmichael bend pro tapers on, and they felt pretty wide, but I liked the way they felt. You know, I kind of sat on his bike and gripped the bars, and I liked the way they felt. So of course, you know, as soon as I feel something like that, I'm like, okay, well, maybe I should kind of play around with it, because I felt like after I sat on his bike, I felt like you can improve the feel of this bike with a good bend of handlebars over what's stock. Well, guess what I have at home? In my garage, I have a shelf with about 20 sets of handlebars from all the years of swapping bars and trying different bends. And so I had these OD bars in here that I'd actually had on my Tuono, but they felt goofy on the Tuono. But they're the OD Flight, Podium Flight bars, and they're a little less sweep. In other words, rather than your hands being like this, your hands are more like that, you know, and they're a little bit wider, so your hands are out like this, and a little bit taller, so you're not as bent down forward. And when I tell you the feel of the bike, it just makes the bike feel so much better. I mean, it's like you're more upright on the motorcycle, which I'm always a fan of. I hate hunching over at all. At my age, I like to sit upright as possible, but it just gives you this wonderful control on your turns, wonderful like playful turn-in feel with these bars, and it's just a huge improvement over the stock bars, in my opinion, as far as making your bike rideable. It's so much easier at lower speeds now, and it feels like proper If it came with these stock, I'm sure a lot of people would love them, especially older guys like me. I also had bar end mirrors on these stock bars. I always put one on the left side, but on these, with these, instead of running the bar end mirrors, I just put the stock bar ends back in, and then I put my Tuono mirrors on, and I've been running it with the Aprilia Tuono mirrors, because the stock mirrors that come with this bike are pretty goofy looking. So I'm running my Tuono mirrors. What else? I'm running Rosso 3s on here. Rosso 3 is the best kept secret in tires, in my opinion, right now. You can get a set of Rosso 3s for $300 or right around $300 for this bike, as opposed to getting, like, say, the Michelin Road 6s, which will cost you $500. You know, you can get a lot of tire for a little bit of money with the Rosso 3. It's a grippy tire. The handling is great. I don't have any problems running with any of the faster guys with these tires. They grip the ground perfect, and I'm a big fan of the Rosso 3. So that's what I run on this bike. If money was no object, of course, you know, the tires I love running are the SC3s, but you don't have much life out of those, as opposed to a more street-based tire. And what I find is on this bike, I get a tremendous amount of tire life compared to my Tuono. Like, I've already put 1,000 miles on this Rosso 3, which I've had on for about a little over a month. And look, it looks brand new. This is with 1,000 miles on it. Rosso 3s is the way to go on this bike. Gas, oil, tires. Bike's got 7,500 or so miles on it now. I bought it at 28, so I've put about 4,000 miles on the bike, and it's been a pleasure to ride. I mean, it's a lot of fun with the rear sets. I don't have to worry about touching down anymore. But again, my buddy Big E said that's largely due to the shock being too soft. So once I get him to replace that spring, he's got all the tools, and he said he'll do it for me. Once I get that new spring in there, that's not going to be an issue at all anymore with it bottoming out. But the rear sets just give it a much more much more racy feel. The stock foot pegs are pretty low, and they just felt too low to me. I was just like, why are my feet way down here? So I was able to get my feet up into the position where it felt like they should be. And the Woodcraft rear sets, I mean, you know, they're my go-to. If I'm going to buy rear sets, I usually like to go with Woodcraft. And that's about it as far as life with this MT-09 SP. It's been a lot of fun to ride. The only maintenance I've done is a tire change and a filter clean. You know, just check nuts and bolts and, you know, that type of thing. It really, you know, this bike is very low maintenance. The only thing I think is a little weird about it is it calls for plugs to be changed like every 8,000 miles. So I'm going to talk to some folks and see if they think that's recommended, because I'm about to be there. And I've never heard of plugs having to be changed that frequently. So I think it's a little odd, but we'll see. There's a cover that they make for this gap right here that I see some guys put on, but I'm not going to do that, because this right here is the rectifier. And it's out here with fins on it for a reason, and that reason is to keep it cool. And I feel like when you enclose that area, you're making it hotter for this thing, which can blow out, which can cause problems with your stator and your charging system. So although I know they make a plate that covers up stuff like that, and bodywork pieces that kind of, you know, clean the gaps up, and belly pans and whatnot, I'm leaving this bike just like it is. It's a naked bike, and I like the fact that that stuff is open and exposed. And I know that rectifier needs to breathe, so, you know, it just feels counterintuitive to try to cover that up. Although I've seen it done, I wouldn't do it personally. And yeah, that's about it. These DNA stickers, I do have a DNA filter, but I took it out because I felt like the DNA filter actually makes this bike lose something in its responsiveness. And it's barely noticeable, but I notice it. You know, I didn't really like the way it lost. It dulled down the crispiness of the bike. So I pulled the DNA out after trying it a couple of times, but I left these stickers on here because when you pull your tank off, or if you tilt it forward, or if you move it around at all, it's got these little bolts under here, these little brackets that where the bolts go into to hold it in place. And once you take those bolts out, this kind of lowers down, and those brackets rub the frame and actually make these horrible scratch marks in the frame. So I scratched up my frame right there, and it really pissed me off. But the DNA filter stickers, you could see a little piece of the scratch right there where my fingernail is, and the DNA stickers cover those scratches up nice, so that's why they're there. But I do not have a DNA filter. I have a stock air filter, because the DNA air filter, I did not like the effect of it being in. And I hate to say that, because DNA, I really like their filters, but on this bike I felt it was a negative. And also I will say that the bars, and with these bar ends, there's no vibration at the bars. It's a very smooth, enjoyable ride. There's no tingling of fingers or numbness. You can ride this bike all day in comfort. And I have the comfort seat, so although this rises up a bit more than I would like, it's not a problem. I've ridden this bike all day, and you know, my tailbone is not very sore at all. So it's the comfort seat is definitely worth investing in. My bike came with it, so I'm not sure how much it costs, but you know, the supercomputer that you're holding in your hand right now, I'm sure you can find it quicker than I could tell you where to get it. So anyway, that's the wrap on the Yamaha MT-09 SP, the 2023 model. Of course, in 2024, they changed a bunch of things. This whole shock reservoir action is on this side now on the new bike. The bars and the risers, how these risers are super tall. The new ones are like half as tall, and the front is much lower on the new one. It feels much more like a proper you know, naked bike that's ready to attack turns, where this feels more like a touring bike. The way my bike is set up, it feels like I'm on a big supermoto, or like a touring bike, like a V-Strom or something like that, but a very fun, peppy, enjoyable V-Strom. So that's all I got. I just wanted to come on here. I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving, a happy holidays, and I look forward to seeing you on the next Ant-Man Moto video. And like I always say, take care of each other, but more importantly, take care of yourself. Talk to you on the next one, Ant-Man Moto. Peace.